Okay, we're live.
Yay!
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Today we have Helen Rygh-Pedersen, who is the author of the amazing Waking Ursa Minor book. And I'm so excited to be talking to Helen today about this fantastic book. So welcome, Helen.
Hello.
Thank you for joining us today. And so tell us a little bit about yourself and, your writing career.
So I'm actually from the UK, but I live in Norway. I've been living here for about 6 years now. Yeah, 6 years. But before that, I lived sort of all over the place due to my parents' work and then university and all that kind of stuff. So I've traveled around a lot, but finally settled here in Norway. But I guess because of all the moving around, when I was younger, we listened to a lot of story tapes in the car and I read a lot. And so it was only natural, really, that I started writing. Although my mum does like to tell the story that when I was at kindergarten, I wanted to do what the bigger children were doing. They'd learnt their letters, I hadn't, and so I was given a book to write my stories in, and I could read them back to different adults and tell the same story each time. So it started a long time ago, but then I guess, as with a lot of writers, we have to get a job and life happens, and then we find ourselves again later. So
yeah. I had a similar experience when I started kindergarten, which here in the US is kind of like your introduction to like the main school system. It's about like 5 or 6 years old, and that's where like most kids learn how to read and write.
Mm-hmm.
I was the go-getter, and I had already known how to read and write before I started kindergarten. I sat there with my Curious George books, and I first started with like tracing paper, and I would trace over all of the pages just for fun.
Mm-hmm.
And then I started learning that like these symbols are letters and they make up words, and that's how you read, and that's how stories are created. And so then I would like just copy over the pages, and that transitioned into my own crazy stories that I would write.
Oh, that's great.
So I read somewhere that you had been working on Waking Ursa Minor for a long time before we got to see it.
Yes.
Talk to us about your inspiration for writing this book in this series.
Well, we have to actually go back like 22 years to when I was 11. And it was just, I went to boarding school because of my parents moving around a lot. So one evening I just sat down and started writing because creative writing was my favorite subject at school. And I don't know, maybe we'd had a lesson and I wanted to carry on with that. I can't remember. But anyway, this first story was called Utopia, and it involved 4 teenagers on a plane crash, and they landed on Utopia where everything is supposed to be perfect, but of course it wasn't. And it was very, sort of melodramatic preteen angst and who likes who, and yeah. So I'm very glad to say that there's only 1 or 2 things or names or events from that book that made it through to this one and the series as a whole. So needless to say, it got put aside for a very, very long time. Although I did try to edit it after that first draft, still got put aside in a drawer, but I'm very glad that I found it again. Yeah. So.
That's great. We all have like those embarrassing first stories that we've written.
Yeah, but usually you leave them there
My mom kept mine, And then like when I was in college, she gave them to me. So now I have them hidden in a drawer.
Maybe you should
One
dig
was
them
like
up.
from like third grade. We had like this whole project where we had to write a book and we had to like draw the pictures and we got to like do the binding and everything. And mine was like some girl ran away from home and went and lived in the woods with all of the Sesame Street characters.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Plus like some random actor that I was apparently obsessed with at the time. And it was like Cookie Monster's birthday, and
Well,
but then
that
he
sounds fantastic.
disappeared, and so we had to go like on this hunt to find Cookie Monster.
I love it.
It was weird, but like your story, a lot of my stories had like depressing starts to them. Whereas like, yours was the plane crash that was in utopia that was supposed to be perfect but wasn't perfect. Mine dealt a lot with like kids randomly running away from home, or like the next book that I had to write was in I think like middle school. I was like early teens, and we had the same kind of project that we had to do. We had to write a kids book, and in my mind I was writing more what they now call like a YA book for teens.
Mm-hmm.
Because they didn't really specify what ages these books had to be for. So I'm like, I'm going to write a book that's actually going to help kids. And in my book, it was, there was 4 characters, and they were all like best friends. There was 2 guys and 2 girls, and one person got cancer and died, and then the other 3 had to like figure out how to move on with their life without their best friend.
Oh, wow,
And
that's so sad.
it was so sad. And it like my teachers, like one of the characters was contemplating suicide because he was married to the character that died. And it was like about them 3 coming together and figuring out how to move on with their life without this other person.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be very inspirational.
No, that does actually sound really
Right.
good.
But I was like 12 or 13 at the time, and my teachers were very concerned, and I had to go to counseling. They thought I was suicidal, and I had to like change the entire ending of the story to make it a happy ending, even though in my mind it was happy. I had to like change the whole book, and then I was so mad because it wasn't the same book.
Yeah, I get that. You're
But I
just
still had
too
that one.
ahead of your time. That was it.
Yes, yes. So the latest news about Waking Ursa Minor is that it's now in the SFPBO contest. Did I get that right?
SPFBO or SPIFBO, as some people say.
Yeah. So tell us how that's going. You must be so excited about that.
I'm excited and nervous. I'm still in it, but I think that's only because my judge hasn't actually sort of released any reviews or cuts yet. So, I mean, I've been watching the competition for the last 2 years, especially last year, knowing that I was going to publish. I was sort of every notification that came up, I was watching, and I was reading all these reviews. And I just thought, you know what, it'll be fun. It'll be, I hope, good publicity. It'll probably get cut like in 2 weeks or something, but it's not really, because only 1 out of 300 can win, and only 10 out of 300 go through to the finals. So it's very much down to what that particular judge thinks of it. So it's you just got to take it with like a pinch of salt. It's fun. It's about meeting other indie authors, other self-published authors, and promoting, self-published fantasy. Yeah. So I think what Mark Lawrence is doing by actually holding this competition, because he's a traditionally published author, I think it's fantastic, really shining a spotlight on self-published fantasy. It's great.
Yeah. Absolutely. I know in previous contests, Last year I read the Books of Babel series by Josiah Bancroft, and Mark Lawrence discovered that series through the contest.
Yeah.
And I think Josiah came in second place that year.
I can't remember.
But he was a finalist at least for his first book, Senlin Ascends. And Mark Lawrence just absolutely fell in love with the book. And even though Josiah didn't win, he connected Josiah Bancroft with his agent and his publisher. And so then Senlin Ascends got published traditionally because Mark Lawrence read the book through the contest and was like, this is amazing. And so even if, there's only one winner, first of all of these books are still getting read and the publicity that they deserve. So everyone's the winner in the end.
I mean, it's fantastic. On the Facebook group for SPFBO, every time a cut comes up, a review and cut, you read the comments and everyone's like, wow, that's a great review. I'm going to add that to my TBR, or I'm buying that now. So even though it's been cut from the competition, people, because they read the review and have discovered this new book, are, so excited about it. It's just, I think it's great, but still in it at the moment. But like I said, that's only because my judge hasn't started cutting.
That's not true. I'm sure you'll make it really far because this book I know over on Leslie the Nerdy Narratives Discord, we have like a whole chat for Waking Ursa Minor where people can come and kind of talk as they're walking through it. And a bunch of us read the book all at the same time. So we were all chatting at the same time. And we were just like, this book is so good. We can't wait for book 2. But yeah, it's amazing like what Mark Lawrence is doing with this contest. He's a traditionally published author and he's made it big and he doesn't have to do something like that. But the fact that he does it every year, it just shows you what kind of a person he is.
Yeah.
A lot of times authors, they hit it big and then, their ego gets a hold of them and they forget about the little guys.
They're just too busy.
That too. So should we go into spoilers now and talk Waking Ursa Minor?
Yeah, I guess we can.
Okay. So there was so many great characters in this book. I think that's my favorite part about Waking Ursa Minor was that the diversity of characters that you had in here, every character, even if they were, minor characters, they all felt like they were well-developed and dynamic characters. And even the characters that like you knew you weren't supposed to be rooting for, they were the bad guys of the book, the villains. There were moments where, at least for me, I still felt sympathy for the characters because you told this story so well through all of their points of view that it all kind of came together. And I was like, oh, I'm not supposed to like Okarfrith, but at this moment, I'm crying for him. I don't know why I'm crying, but I'm crying for him. My favorite character out of all of them, though, was Baron.
Yes.
And I know Stacy, who's joining us from Finland, absolutely loved Baron also. And we talked about how you kind of ripped our heart out twice.
I'm sorry.
Because there was like Baron's supposed death. And then, he came back with Okarfrith and you're like, oh, is he going to actually live? And then he kind of like died a second death and we were like, so Stacy would like to know why you had to rip our heart out and kill Baron.
Because I'm mean and I read way too much Robin Hobb. No, there was a point where I really, really tried to keep him in there. I really tried to change the plot of the ongoing books to incorporate him, but anything that I sort of then tried to do that would keep him alive, it just didn't work. He had to go. I'm sorry.
Sometimes,
But no, I was upset myself when I had to kill him off. But you know, sometimes you just gotta get rid of those characters. I'm sorry.
I mean, we will forgive you because the book was amazing, and
Thank you.
And we are sure that you'll rip our hearts out again in future books, but also redeem yourself with other great characters to fall in love with.
Well, I hope so.
Yes, for the good of the others, he was sacrificed. So going along with Baron, his whole family and his tribe really interested me. So I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about your inspiration for Baron's family and, you know, the ice cave that they would go and hibernate in during the winter.
I think a lot of that part of the book actually developed after I moved here to Norway. I think I was so inspired by the landscape, and yeah, I actually remember going. It's funny because it came up on my Facebook like a month ago, some pictures of this walk that I did in the first year that I lived here with the Frivilligcentralen, and it was a wet, rainy day, and we were walking past these ruins of these old farmsteads or something, and it just sparked something in me. And so a lot of that section is based or inspired by Norway, I guess. And then Hollenbar itself, I studied French and Italian at university and linguistics, so I'm very into a lot of that stuff. And Hollenbar is a little bit of a play on the German for cave bears. So yeah, you find all these little sorts of nuggets in the book if you have any sort of linguistic language fascination like me. So I do try and sort of bring stuff from our world into the book somehow to base it on, and to really pad out the culture and the world. Yeah,
That's great. I've never been to Norway, but from what I've heard and seen of it, I can definitely see the inspiration there. So talk to us about these assassin monks and where you got this idea for this whole organization.
Well, the Separamus, it really came from a Krafkus. Initially, he was this evil assassin, but he couldn't just be an assassin. He needed some sort of background to that, and because he is quite a complex character, we needed something really big that would make him stick to doing something that, quite frankly, he's had enough of. And so obviously you're in the spoiler section, so you've read the book. The Separamus were formed after Riverde was split, after the Rivening, and their job was to stop the islands being joined again, because if the islands are joined again, then it is possible that the Taikes would be reawakened, and that is not a good thing. So they will risk anything to stop this happening, basically. So yeah, it all started with a Krafkus. You can blame him for a lot of stuff, really.
Well, one of the things that I really enjoyed about the journey that Waking Ursa Minor took was learning about the legend of the joining of this land. And, you know, you got it from all these different points of views, and you weren't sure. We started with our main character, and this was her journey, and so you thought, this has to happen. This is a good thing that happens. And then we got it from Ogrefriz, and we're like, wait, is it good or is it bad? Are we supposed to like him? Are we supposed to side with him, or are we supposed to say whatever he says is bad and don't trust him? And then you bring in, Baron and his family, and Cheskia, and her family, and you get all of these different points of views about the same event that is supposed to happen. And I liked it because you had to kind of try to figure out yourself.
Yeah, and maybe there are some readers who disagree with what happened in the end, but that's that kind of is what happens in life. You have all these different opinions, you have all these different versions of things. Things get lost in history or lost in translation, and so you're trying to piece things together and hope you're doing the best job you can. So that was, I thought I did try and get other opinions, because which may be why some people don't like the book, because it's not just black and white, good versus evil, that kind of thing. It's very, I think a lot of it is morally grey, not just the characters, but the story itself, if that makes any sense.
It does. I mean, but that's, a reflection of life.
Yeah,
life
exactly.
Is not good and bad. It's not black and white. It's a mixture of a lot of things. And as you get older, you learn more and more is, trying to figure out where your good is and where your bad is. And everyone has different interpretations of what's good and what's bad. So we have, it looks like 7 people watching now. So if there's anyone out there that has questions, feel free to put them in the chat and we'll get to them as we're chatting along. And, thank you for watching. We weren't expecting this many people at all. So this is amazing. And as you can tell, we're in spoilers. So if you joined late and you haven't read Waking Ursa Minor, stop now and go get the book and read it, and then come back and watch it, because this will be up on YouTube forever. But thank you guys for joining. So I noticed that, the different families that we came across were reminiscent of different, fantasy creatures that you see in classic fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering kind of where you got your ideas for these different tribes. Was it just, general fantasy, or particular things that you read along the way?
Well, I guess a lot of it is, things you read along the way. I mean, there's so many, it's almost like, how many tropes can I cram into one book? It feels like, because you've got the shifters, you've got some sort of like nomadic tribal clan, you have the mer and the underwater species. And I do like all these tropes in fantasy. Obviously, they're instilled in me from my own reading, but I wanted to try and make them a little bit different, especially with the shifter aspect of things, because I didn't want it to be like your traditional werewolf shifting thing. And actually, the shifting is not a huge. It's not the biggest part of it. It's just a small part of who they are.
Yeah.
And also the mer, because the sea is creepy. Why would you have beautiful women down there? They would be creepy. Like, come on.
Yeah. I mean, you think about the whole idea of mermaids and where that legend kind of started with. I think, things like Disney kind of glorified mermaids with The Little Mermaid and those kinds of movies, but all of our, fairy tales really, when you take them back to their origins, you go back to things like the Grimm brothers. They were not pretty at all. They were horrifying. And, mermaids were not, they were physically beautiful, but they were not pretty creatures at all.
No, they were.
From a human's point of view.
Yeah. So I just wanted to try and make them a little bit different.
Yeah, I loved that, the shape-shifting was part of who they were, but it wasn't the main part of the story. There was, a story that everyone could relate to in this fantasy story. That's one of my favorite parts about well-written fantasy books is that even if it takes place in this made-up world with these creatures that sadly don't exist in our world, you can still find something to relate to in the story. It's, a human story told in a fantasy world, essentially.
I think that's why I love fantasy, because you can broach really serious topics that if you were to put that in a contemporary book, you could cross all sorts of lines, you could really upset people. But these are topics that do need speaking about. And fantasy is a fantastic place to actually discuss these really problematic issues that we have in society.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you're not supposed to.
Yeah. Her parents kind of, I guess her dad wore on me a little bit when we got closer to the end, because he kind of redeemed himself at the end there. But definitely her mom is suspect in my mind going into book 2. I think because we got so little of her parents in book 1, my reader brain is still holding out hope that maybe somewhere down the line in a series they'll redeem themselves.
They will be coming back at some point.
Okay. So speaking of further in this series and what kind of is in store for some of our characters.
Ooh, how much do I say?
Well, as much or as little as you would like.
Well, I think first of all, I have to sort of talk a little bit about book 2, because it's not a straight up sequel. In fact, it's more of a companion to Waking Ursa Minor. So we almost go back to the beginning again, but we follow completely different characters and the world just expands. And a lot of the stuff that was sort of background information in Waking Ursa Minor is more prevalent in book 2. And I know some readers don't like it when this happens, but I tried to put this in Waking Ursa Minor and it was just too much. It was too much going on. There's a lot going on in that book already, so you didn't need any more. However, I still don't know whether to have that as officially book 2 or bring that out as an extra special something. So I am still working on that. But let's just say there is a lot in store for Sarah Kayla, because and people have very different opinions on Sarah Kayla. Some people love her, some people hate her and think she's very, very whiny. And that is, perfectly legitimate. I also found her whiny, but then you know what? People like that actually exist. So why shouldn't they be in stories? Because I kind of, when I was writing it, I wanted to write the main characters, who are usually side characters in another book. I wanted them to have their story.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why some people really do not like the characters, because maybe they can't relate to them, but it means she has a long way to go. And this is going to be a long series. So just bear with her. She has a lot of growing up to do.
Yeah.
She had a late start in life, learning things. coming out into the world. So she has a lot to learn. So does Setimika. Whether they do that together or not, you'll have to wait and see.
Okay.
And Okrafkas will also confront some demons from his past.
Okay.
And that's about all I can say right now, because I can't really talk about any of the other characters going forward because you haven't met them yet.
Okay.
So
will we... one of the things that the impressions that I got at the end of the book was that Okrafris and Cheskia's baby was going to come and play a bigger part in the rest of the series.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something that you can confirm or deny?
I can confirm it, but it will be a lot later.
Okay.
In the series, we have to let her grow up just a little bit till she,
So
she
this is going to be a big series. How many books are you anticipating?
I don't have an exact number at the minute. I know where it's going. I have the main points, but the detailed itinerary is still being planned out because there are a lot of characters, a lot of sort of plot arcs that all need sort of weaving together. So it does take its time. And I am a little bit, I wouldn't say I was a discovery writer, but just there is that little bit of me that does not stick to a plan when I write it. And then I have to end up changing the whole plan and weaving around to try and get to that point that I wanted to. So it's definitely going to be more than 3. I can say that, definitely more than 3. So possibly between 3 and 7, I want to say, but there are other stories in the works in this world that might not be in the series. So they might be standalones, but have some small links to the Reverter Rising series.
Do we have a title yet for book 2?
Sorry?
Do we have a title yet for book 2?
We do, but I'm not telling you yet.
Okay, fair enough. So Stacy asked about Baron's cousin. And will
Vetla, yeah.
Yes.
Yes, possibly. I'm concentrating on the other storylines right now, but we still there is definitely stuff going on back on Tyrmania. But right now I have to admit I am concentrating on Sarah Kayla and Setimika's storylines.
Okay. And Amy wants to know when we're gonna get book 2.
When it's ready. I've just finished this week, actually. I just finished draft 1, which I know has taken me way, way longer than it should have done. So I've just finished draft 1 of that. I'm giving it a little break while it's Camp NaNoWriMo, and I'm working on something a bit lighter. Only one sort of plot line going through it, and then I'll go back and dive into edits and stuff like that.
Well, we're very excited for book 2. Do you think there will be arcs available for book 2 when it's ready?
I am sure there will be.
Okay, we can't wait.
Well, hopefully this time I'll do it in a bit more of a timely manner and get them out sooner.
So, going back to Waking Ursa Minor, who is your favorite character to write?
Well, that's a really hard question. I suppose it, probably should be Sarah Kayla, but it really wasn't. I loved writing Okrafkas and I loved writing Cheskia. I think when I was writing it as well, over the time that I was writing it, I was pregnant, I had my daughter, and then I was pregnant again with my son. So I felt like I understood some of what she was going through. So I felt her maternal drive and stuff. And I think she's just cool. She's really strong, and you know, she's way cooler and stronger than I am. So I'm not saying she's based on me in any way. I just understood what she was going through in terms of the pregnancy thing. But yeah, I just thought she was cool.
She's very cool. I liked seeing kind of her development as the story went along. You started to feel more and more sympathy for her as you learned more of her story.
Mm-hmm.
I can't wait to learn more about her in future books, maybe. Is there anything else that you want to tell us about the series?
I don't know how much I can say, really. I don't want to sort of ruin the reading experience for anyone.
Is there anything
no,
that we
all I
know?
can say is I am trying to get it done as fast as I can, but I also want it to be the same quality as Waking Ursa Minor. I want everything to tie in and make sense, and because the world is so big, it is going to take some time. So all I can say is bear with me. I will also be trying to get some other stuff out in the meantime. But if that's not your thing, because it is lighter, then that's fine.
I can't speak for the other people watching, but just reading your writing and your prose, I would read anything that you put out there.
Thank you.
Because, the story of Waking Ursa Minor was amazing on itself, but the way that you told this story, I have a master's degree in creative writing. I used to write, as we talked about earlier. So part of what I do when I read is, I look at the story that's being told and the characters that are created, but then I also look at the writing itself and the prose and how it's being told. And I could tell that this is a great story, but also a fantastic writer that I would enjoy reading anything put out, whether it's, heavy stuff like Waking Ursa Minor or lighter stuff. I will gladly add your name multiple times to my bookshelves.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
You're welcome. Thank you for giving us this world and Waking Ursa Minor and that beautiful cover.
It is fantastic. Franzi, the cover designer, I'm sure she was sick of me by the end of it, but she really did pull it out of the bag, especially with the naked hardcover, which I love.
Yes. I think I stumbled upon Waking Ursa Minor when a friend on the Nerdy Narratives Discord said, like, this author put out this thing on Instagram saying, if anyone wants to read this book, here it is. And I saw the cover and I said, I need to read that book as soon as I can. So it was definitely a cover buy for me, but
yeah, that saying, don't judge a book by its cover, is who came up with that?
Not. I've read some really amazing books just based off of their covers.
Yeah.
And I've also read some books that weren't great based off of their covers. So yeah. I totally judge a book by its cover sometimes. Is there anything that we should know when book 2 comes out going into book 2?
Again, just that it's not a straight follow-on. You will go back, and there are some appearances of characters, like little cameos from characters you might know. But it's not about them. It's a completely new storyline, but it is very essential for what's going forward then into book 3, where the characters from Waking Ursa Minor and nearly said it then, book 2, sort of come together in book 3, and then we go from there with a much bigger sort of cast and plot lines.
Yeah. Well, I can't wait for book 2. We're very excited about it, but we understand that perfection takes time and great books take time. So we'll be as patient as we can.
And I will try and be as fast as I can.
All right. Well, is there anything else that you want to talk about today?
Not really from my side, but thank you so much for the interview, and thank you so much to everyone who has bought, read, reviewed Waking Ursa Minor, whether you liked it or you didn't. I am very appreciative of all the support. It's been really overwhelming, so thank you.
Well, thank you for joining, and thank you to everyone out there who's watching this. If you've made it this far and you haven't read Waking Ursa Minor, well, you've been spoiled for the book, but that doesn't mean you're off the hook for reading the book. You need to go out and get the book and read it, and then come back and comment on your favorite parts of the book, your favorite characters of the book. So thank you all for joining us today. We can't wait for book 2, and we'll talk to y'all soon. Bye.
Bye.